Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Seed Innovations Annual General Meeting. Throughout this recorded meeting, attendees online will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged. They can be submitted at any time using the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Simply type in your questions and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question submitted today. However, the company can review questions and will publish any responses on the Investor Meet Company dashboard. I'd now like to hand over to Chairman Ian Burns. Good morning.
Thank you, Mark. Good morning, everybody. I hereby call to order the 2023 Annual General Meeting of Seed Innovations. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all our shareholders, some of whom are in the room and many of whom are joining us virtually. Thanks very much for your participation and for your continued support of our company. I'm Ian Burns, you can see me here. I'm Chairman of the company and I'll act as Chairman for the purpose of this meeting also. I'd like to introduce, and perhaps you could just raise your hand, Ed McDermott, who's our CEO, Lars de Jersey, our Finance Director, Luke Cairns, who's Chairman of the Audit Committee, and especially to welcome Alfredo Pascual to his first AGM. I'd also like to introduce Jodie Bisson of Obsidian, our Company Secretary, who will be responsible for keeping the minutes for this meeting. The quorum necessary to constitute this general meeting of the company is any person holding at least 2 ordinary shares in the company, present in person or by proxy and entitled to vote upon the business to be transacted. As the requisite quorum is present, I declare this annual general meeting open. I'd like to acknowledge the apologies we've received from shareholders who could not attend today's meeting due to unavoidable commitments. Before we proceed, I'd like to go over the procedures for today's AGM. As last year, we'll follow a structured agenda, and after the formal section of the AGM, we will move to a shareholder update. The first item of business is the adoption of the minutes for our last AGM held on the 7th of September 2022. These minutes have been circulated to all shareholders prior to the meeting. If there are no objections, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the minutes. Okay, thank you. We now move to the resolutions as set out in the agenda. We have several resolutions to discuss today. Each resolution will be presented individually. Resolution 1, to receive and if thought fit, accept the report of the directors and auditors and the audited financial statements for the year ended 31st of March 2023. Are there any questions relating to this resolution? No. There being no questions, I now propose to put the vote of the meeting resolution number 1 set out in the notice convening to this meeting as an ordinary resolution. I now put resolution 1 to the meeting. We've received proxy votes as now detailed on the screen in relation to this resolution, so I declare resolution 1 carried as an ordinary resolution by the requisite majority. Resolution 2 is that the company be authorised to make market acquisitions of its own ordinary shares of 1p each, which may be cancelled or held in treasury, subject to a number of conditions as detailed in the notice that you've received, most notably that the maximum number of ordinary shares hereby authorised to be purchased shall be a number equal to 14.99% of the ordinary shares in issue on the 20th of September 2023. Any questions in relation to this resolution? No questions. I propose to put the vote of the meeting resolution is as set out in the notice as an ordinary resolution. I put this resolution to the meeting. We've received proxy votes as detailed on the screen now in relation to this resolution, so I declare resolution 2 carried as an ordinary resolution by the requisite majority. Resolution 3 is to reappoint Grant Thornton Channel Islands auditors and to authorise the directors to agree their remuneration. Any questions? No. There being no questions, I now propose to put to the vote of the meeting resolution number 3 set out in the notice convening this meeting as an ordinary resolution. I now put resolution number 3 to the meeting. We've received proxy votes as detailed on the screen, so I declare resolution 3 carried as an ordinary resolution by the requisite majority. Resolution 4 is to reappoint Ed McDermott as an executive director. Any questions? There being no questions, I now propose to put to the vote of the meeting resolution 4 set out in the notice convening this meeting as an ordinary resolution. I now put resolution 4 to the meeting. Again, we have received proxy votes as detailed on the screen now in relation to this resolution, so I declare resolution 4 carried as an ordinary resolution by the requisite majority. Sorry, what's resolution 4? I've done 4.
Yes, 5.
5 is the next one. To reappoint Luke Cairns as an executive director. Any questions in relation to that? There being no questions, I now propose to put to the vote of the meeting resolution 5 set out in the notice convening the meeting as an ordinary resolution. I now put resolution 5 to the meeting. We've received proxy votes as detailed on the screen now in relation to this resolution, so I declare resolution 5 carried as an ordinary resolution by the requisite majority. Resolution 6 is to reappoint Mr. Alfredo Pactual as an executive director. Are there any questions in relation to this resolution? No. There being no questions, I now propose to put to the vote of the meeting resolution 6 set out in the notice convening this meeting as an ordinary resolution. I now put resolution 6 to the meeting. We have received proxy votes as detailed on the screen now in relation to this resolution, so I declare resolution 6 carried as an ordinary resolution by the requisite majority. We now move to special resolutions. Resolution 7, the directors be empowered pursuant to issue or allot equity securities for cash, providing that this power shall be limited as set out in the notice and which will expire on the date of the next annual general meeting of the company. Any questions relating to this resolution? There being no questions, I now propose to put this resolution to the meeting. I now put the resolution to the meeting. We've again received proxy votes as detailed on the screen in relation to this resolution, so I declare resolution 7 carried as a special resolution by the requisite majority. Finally, resolution 8, that the directors be generally authorised to allot equity securities for cash pursuant to the authority conferred on the previous resolution, as if Article 6 of the Articles or any other shareholder rights of preemption did not apply to such allotment, providing that this power shall expire at the end of the annual general meeting of the company to be held in 2024, unless renewed, varied or revoked by the company prior to that date. And the company may, before the expiry of the period referenced in paragraph A above, make an offer or agreement which would or might require equity securities to be allotted free of the preemption rights, and the directors may allot equity securities free of the preemption rights in pursuant of such offer or agreement, notwithstanding that the authorities conferred by this resolution have expired. Any questions in relation to that one? Okay, I'll put that resolution to the meeting. Again, we have received proxy votes as detailed on the screen, so I declare resolution 8 carried as a special resolution by the requisite majority. Is there any other business for this AGM? The formal part of the AGM? No. So therefore I declare the AGM closed, and I'd now like to introduce Ed, who will introduce and lead the investor update.
Thank you very much, Ian, and thank you everyone who's in attendance online. Obviously, this will be recorded so it can be reviewed later and rewatched, as far as I'm aware, as many times as you would like. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the board for their hard work and diligence in helping the executive team make key decisions. We know the last 18 to 24 months has been extremely frustrating. The share price definitely does not reflect the hard work myself and the team have put in to the fund and in assisting our investee companies. As everyone will be aware, the macro view has been extremely challenging, especially when you consider PE, VC-minded investors, and we've seen the lowest liquidity, sentiment, and IPO activity in over 20 years. So it's been very, very difficult. The team has done very good work, particularly in making sure that we have mechanisms in place with our newer investments, i.e. investments that this board has been involved in making the decisions. And we've always tried to seek liquidity preferences and negotiate our entry points with exits in mind. This is exactly what has allowed us to exit, get a partial exit of around 55% of our extra position at a 60% premium. Obviously, where it comes to legacy assets, it's very difficult for us to retrospectively make changes, and we can only manage what's in front of us. So that does not mean that we don't give absolutely everything to try and make sure that we get the best possible outcome with those legacy investments. It's obviously been, it's very difficult to exit privately held companies at the best of times. So I hope investors can recognise that we're making the right moves. And with all that in mind, I think it's now time to focus on the advantageous position we now find ourselves in. We have over £7 million of cash and receivables through asset sales. So this is non-diluted, organically returned cash to the fund. We've got an invested net asset value of around £8 million. We've got market conditions which, although very difficult, allow us a lot of opportunity to get entry prices with a hell of a lot of deeper value versus 18 to 24 months ago. We've got a rising tide in the cannabis sector, particularly with regulatory change going on in the US. Cell agriculture, precision fermentation and biotech sectors are all also starting to have green shoots again. Again, we think that having capital right now is going to put us in a really, really strong position where it comes to creating near-term value and medium-term value as well. We've got a very functional board with a wide array of skill sets. We believe this can help create real value via the investments that we make. And obviously we tend to try and stick to investment areas that we know that we can actually make an impact on. The majority of our legacy assets are now divested, and the current management now have a much clearer run at proving value. Crucially, we've also announced yesterday, 6 p.m, a live share buyback, which will see us purchase up to 10% of our issued shares. At this point, I'd like to hand over to Lance, our Finance Director, to give an overview of the financials. One point, sorry, before I do that, it's worth having a good read of the disclaimer. I know it's obviously the small print, but obviously it carries a lot of explanation around the risk profile of the business. So it's not something that shouldn't be read.
Thanks, Ed. So the second half of last year and this year to date has been very much about the management of existing investment positions and pushing to realise those investments where it's possible to do so. This is evident in the sale of Leap Gaming, the shift of the Southwest Brands CLN3 to become repayable rather than converting to equity as part of the Otto purchase, and more recently the realisation of part of our stake in Avextra for nearly 2.9 million euros. This has left us in a very strong financial position, an enviable financial position, I would say, with cash and receivables, including the £2.5 million, which will be the second half of Leap process, the Leap sale proceeds, excuse me, which is due in April of next year, and totaling then about 7.1 million, as Ed has said earlier. At the same time, we continue to control costs. Those are down from over 900,000 in last year to about 744,000 in the year to March 2023. That's 3.6% of the March 22 NAV. Our forecast is for ongoing non-investment costs to remain below the 5% of the March 23 NAV for this year. Looking forward and how we're going to utilise those funds, we're looking at a combination of new investments, so like our recent add-on to Clean Food Group, where we put 216,000 into them, but also into new companies, into new opportunities, as Ed has alluded. Also, some shorter-term interim investments to make the cash work whilst we're looking for the right longer-term investment opportunities. And going through the due diligence, etc., on those. And then finally, we've earmarked 850,000 for this buyback program announced yesterday, which will aim to reduce the current share capital base and hopefully return the stock price to a more sensible level of discount to NAV. So I think, having said all of this, it's the perfect time to hand back to Ed and Alfredo to talk to us about that investment portfolio.
Thanks, Lance. Very much appreciate that. As I commented in the RNS relating to our partial Avextra exit, the goal is to turn around our medium and longer term investments within a 24-month time frame. We're running two strategies alongside each other, which is a fairly new thing for this particular fund. One being a short-term trading strategy utilising smaller quantums of capital coupled with the more traditional PE VC philosophy that we've employed to date. Investors can look forward to new investments, a more engaged communication strategy, and further liquidity events. Potential liquidity events give us options. Those options being reinvest the capital, buy back our shares, or special dividends. And these are all things that we consider and discuss on a regular basis. Obviously, at this stage, we have elected to buy back shares because we believe that this is the quickest way in order to generate value for shareholders. And we believe with the market as it is, that there are excellent investment opportunities where we can get deeper value investment entries. We can obviously continue to evaluate those options, and obviously any future liquidity events may well result in special dividends, but at this point in time, that is not something that we are looking to do. It is very much our aim to do a live event in London, which is specifically going to be a Seed Innovations investor event during the course of the winter, where we will be in attendance. We will also have our investee companies, one or two of the investee companies presenting, so you can actually get to meet them. We'll also going to take obviously as many investor questions as possible. There'll be obviously a social element of this. And something that I feel has never really been done before, we'd like to bring some potential investee companies, companies that will effectively do a live pitch to us at that event. Obviously, we cannot make a decision about any investment at that event, but I think it would be very interesting to get our own shareholders asking questions to those potential or would-be investee companies. With that, I'll now dive into the presentation itself. And again, we noted in our RNS that this was not going to be a long presentation, so I apologize for that. But as I said, we are absolutely looking at venues and are in the process of trying to organise a live investor event at a suitable venue in London, a not too expensive one, I should add. So looking at the key data slide, there hasn't been an enormous amount of change in terms of our shareholder makeup, in terms of our notifiable shareholder makeup. We have very recently had a Mr. Lloyd Leckerman join the share cap table with 3.73%. So we'd like to welcome Mr. Leckerman and indeed any other investors who've recently joined the cap table. As of March 2023, NAV read as 16 million. And of course, this acts as a bit of a ball and chain for us in many ways, but obviously that value can move upwards and downwards on an intraday, hourly, weekly, monthly basis. So it is really there as the most accurate guide that can be given and utilised by investors at any one time. Obviously, our goal is to increase our net asset value at all times and our share price. Obviously, market conditions can have a significant effect on that. In terms of the board, I won't go through everyone's bio. You hopefully will meet all of them if you haven't already met them at our event. Most importantly, I'd like to welcome Alfredo, our newest director. You'll be familiar with Alfredo, who's been involved with the company now for a few years. Alfredo is obviously very well known as a cannabis expert. However, we have found Alfredo to be far more than just a cannabis expert, and we're very pleased to have him on board. And I note that Alfredo is hopefully on his way to becoming CFA as well, which is another skill set to add to our board. We have a high degree of governance on this board, and the skill sets, as I mentioned in my opening statement, offer a lot to potential investee companies. We also have the double benefit of having a nomad due to our AIM listing, and of course we have a regulated status via the Guernsey Financial Services Commission. In terms of our portfolio, it's obviously been thinned down somewhat in order for us to get to a point where we have more cash. We have 8 live assets at this stage that we attribute any value to. Anything that has been deemed valueless has been taken off this overview here. That does not mean that we will still not be reporting on any of those companies. In this particular case, I refer to companies like Yuma, for example, which have obviously had very, very difficult times. Our largest asset now is Juvenescence, which we hold around £2.5 million. It's a company that we've been in for a long time. We're obviously always looking to find or to help where possible, try and create a liquidity event. It's certainly an area of interest for many people, and I think over the coming 12 months we're going to see some interesting stuff come out of Juvenescence. In terms of size, that's followed then by Avextra, where we still have a very healthy position, Clean Food Group, which we're very excited by, and Little Green Farmer, which we think is a very undervalued asset, and Alfredo will cover that in a little bit more detail. We hope to increase this portfolio to back to double digits in fairly short order, and of course any news that comes around that will be released immediately to the market. Once again, I want to thank everyone for their time today, and at this point I'm going to hand over to Alfredo, who will do an overview of some of the live assets and the macro themes around those.
Thank you, Ed. So over the past couple of years, the cannabis industry has encountered substantial unforeseen challenges, notably the absence of significant federal reform in the United States dampened investor sentiment, and that unfortunately affected some of our investments, as it can be seen in the share price drop of our portfolio company, Little Green Pharma, despite the company having no operations in the United States. Approximately 2 years ago, we made a strategic decision to make a substantial investment to gain direct exposure to Germany, Europe's largest medical cannabis market. And at that time, many prominent German medical cannabis operators were shifting their focus toward potential recreational legalization, diverting resources. In contrast, our chosen investment, Avextra, remained fully committed to the medical cannabis sector, sidestepping distractions from the anticipation of recreational reform. Recent developments have revealed that German adult use legalization, at least in the foreseeable future, will follow a non-commercial model. So Avextra's commitment to the medical cannabis market has proven to be the right thing. And the company has successfully attracted capital at valuations surpassing our entry point, distinguishing itself as one of the few companies in the German medical cannabis industry capable of raising substantial capital at high valuations over the past year. Following the sale of Leap, Avextra emerged as our largest portfolio company as percentage of our NAV, prompting us to explore strategies for managing this substantial position in a non-listed company. One option we considered was a partial sale, and last week we were pleased to report that the recent sale of a portion of our Avextra holdings was executed at a significant premium. This accomplishment is especially remarkable when considering the challenging backdrop of the past 2 years, during which major cannabis stock indices, as well as numerous public and private cannabis companies, face financial hardships. On a broader scale, within the cannabis industry, we are encouraged by recent positive developments in the United States, where North American publicly traded companies in the cannabis sector reported year-to-date highs in the past few days. Following recent reports that the Drug Enforcement Administration received a letter from the Department of Health and Human Services recommending the rescheduling of marijuana to a Schedule III drug. While rescheduling won't legalize the drug nationwide, it will classify it as a substance with lower abuse potential, which would lead to reduced research restrictions and lower tax rates for US cannabis operators. We are closely monitoring the evolving landscape, and we are optimistic that this marks the beginning of a new phase of positive investor sentiment in the cannabis industry. Let's now delve into the most recent addition to our portfolio, Clean Food Group, or CFG, as we also call it. Investing in this UK-based cellular agriculture company, which specializes in palm oil production through precision fermentation, is truly an exciting opportunity. Clean Food Group, a food tech business, is leading the charge in developing sustainable palm oil substitutes and other innovative oil and fat solutions for the global food and cosmetics manufacturers. What sets this investment apart is its ownership of intellectual property that we expect will enable the creation of a bioequivalent palm oil alternative through precision fermentation. To solidify its position in this dynamic industry, CFG has secured a number of different types of strategic collaborations with key partners, including the University of Bath, Döhler Group, and Alianza Team. We expect these partnerships to accelerate the scaling of the technology and the path to commercialization. The worldwide shift towards sustainable, ethical, and eco-friendly alternatives is gaining momentum and attracting investor interest. We were fortunate to have been early investors in CFG, securing our initial position at a lower entry point than subsequent raises. And as Clean Food Group works towards commercializing its technology, we stand ready to seize significant opportunities in this rapidly evolving market. In summary, our investment in Clean Food Group positions investors in seed innovations at the forefront of a transformative industry, addressing critical global challenges and harnessing the potential of precision fermentation for sustainable palm oil production. With this, I hand it over to Ed for some final words.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to the board and everyone in attendance again. At this point, we're going to deal with a number of questions that have come to us. What we've tried to do is collate a number of these questions due to their similarity, and we're going to answer as many as we possibly can. If for any reason you feel you haven't got quite the answer you were looking for, feel free to email us afterwards, and obviously we will answer as much as we can without obviously crossing any lines getting into any price sensitive information. You know, be aware there is only so much we can say about these things, but hopefully the answers will be clear. I'm going to hand over to Ian, who can deal with the questions.
Okay, well, number one question, which is the question which probably the board addresses as much time as it does on investments. So, and I'll summarize, there are a number of people have asked the same question. And I'll use one example of the question. What are the board's plans for addressing the disparity between the NAV and share price, both immediate and in the medium term? And there are a lot of questions around that. This disparity between our share price and our market value. So I don't know, you have addressed some of that, Ed, already in the presentation, but is there anything else that you'd like to comment on that one?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of questions. There's the why and the what are we going to do about it? Why are we where we are, and what are we going to do about it? In terms of why we are where we are, there's a whole range of reasons for that. Obviously, market sentiment, macro themes have been very, very challenging. Liquidity on small caps has been extremely difficult as well, been very, very low. IPO activity, very, very low. Everyone's valuations have largely been beaten up. Obviously, if we look back to Leap, it was we all had much greater hope for that business than what was achieved. In reality, we were quite lucky to get out of it as we did, but that doesn't mean that we aren't still disappointed. I hope the initiation of the buyback has obviously answered the question as to what are we going to do about it. That's obviously one piece of a number of items that we're going to do to get the disparity between share price and NAV ideally a lot closer, and there's no reason why we have to trade below NAV indeed, or even at NAV. You know, as I said, it can be a bit of a ball and chain, and I think it doesn't necessarily reflect the potential of some of the assets that we have. In terms of making good investments and having successful outcomes, that is obviously going to be an important bridge in getting both our share price, obviously therefore our market cap, and of course our net asset value increase. And as I said, there are sort of three drivers as we see it. There's buying back our own shares, there's investing to make short and medium term profit, and then there is the communication strategy that we will be employing, which will be, I think, a lot more robust. We've had to be at times a lot more quiet than we would like to be, but that's just the nature of having heads down, working on getting to a point where we have actions like divestments, such as our Avextra divestment recently, and of course organising the buyback. These things don't happen overnight. It can be many, many months in the making, and of course there are other items that will keep us inside during that. But as per the presentation, we're always considering lots of ways in which we can create value for shareholders, and indeed most of the people in this room are shareholders of this company. Myself is a relatively material holding as well. So it's very, very important, and we are aligned in wanting to see the disparity change significantly. So I hope that helps, and I also hope that over the coming weeks you're going to see a lot more promotional activity from us, which again will be aimed at existing investors and also just trying to bring people who are in the market and perhaps are not sure what they want to do with their money to come and have a journey with Seed Innovations, because obviously none of the people on this board are doing this for a salary or some fees. We're all extremely competitive individuals. We all care deeply about our reputation, and you know, hopefully that gives investors confidence that we're all working towards the same goal.
Okay, thank you. One which I'll probably answer it. Someone asked, what is the board's forecast for the market cap within the next year? Well, the answer to that is two things. One, it's impossible for us to do it other than to say, I hope it's up. But the other thing is, we're restricted from giving out that kind of forward-facing information. So sorry, whoever asked that question, that's probably not the answer you were looking for, but it's the only one you're going to get from our board, I'm afraid, at this stage. The next question was, are the board of directors considering buying more shares to support the company in what Ed himself has said is an undervalued market cap company? Well, Ed is the biggest owner of shares, I think, in the room. Do you want to comment on that one?
Yeah, I think I've made no secret that I'd like to own more of Seed Innovations. Obviously, like everyone in this room and who's watching, we all have our own financial constraints for a number of reasons. So it's a case of, for me, whenever there is the cash availability personally, and of course, I'm not in a closed period and or inside on anything. So when those sort of three things align, I think I will, but I can't telegraph when and what and how. That I'm not allowed to do, but I would certainly like to own more shares.
Okay. Lance, do you want to, or can you answer this question for us? Someone's asked, is there any plans to cash in on legacy holdings like Portage?
Yeah, I mean, we've got, but Portage, as a good example, is trading well below our cost price. We've sold it at much better than that price in the past, and we're actually holding that holding at an overall profit. Do we want to sell now when the price is down in the 2s and 3s? No, we don't. There's no good reason to. We've got plenty of cash in the bank. We've got plenty of receivables. This isn't the right time to be selling Portage. We do believe, the analysts believe, that there is upside in that. So yes, we're always looking for opportunities to sell, but it's not sell at any cost. It's at the right price as well. And I think.
And would that also be true for a Little Green Farmer?
Yeah, I think so. I think Alfredo sort of spoke about it earlier. We see a lot of upside potential in Little Green Farmer. What we're seeing now at a global level is, in America particularly, is some improvements on those stock prices of American listed cannabis stocks. That's not run over to LGP as yet. It's going to be a slow spill over, and of course, one would expect that would happen more quickly as things become more definite. We're not there yet. It's a forward-looking thing, but we do believe there's upside for both Portage and Little Green Farm. And I mean, yeah, I think as an aside, when you look at listed stocks at the moment, generally, the world is a little bit depressed. That general market sentiment, as that improves, will also help those stocks. Upside on all, I think.
Thank you. Ed, someone has asked, what assurances can you give to long-term investors who've held their shares for over 6 years and are significantly underwater? And I've got a personal interest in this because I will be in that group.
Absolutely. Well, look, firstly, nobody in this room wants anybody to be underwater any time. The risks of investing in the stock market, we can work extremely hard, and we do work extremely hard, and we're going to continue working extremely hard and try to get that share price a great deal higher, ideally through organic investment returns, buybacks, and hopefully successful investing in general. I can assure you that the board acts with excellent governance. So that's one other point that I think is very worthy of mentioning. But I think ultimately it will come down to successful investing. That opens up possibility of healthy special dividends, further buybacks, further reinvesting. The board is aligned with investors in needing the share price and asset values to perform. As I said earlier, we're all here because we're competitive individuals, we are ambitious, and we don't want this to be a 5 or 6 or 7 million pound market cap. Our sites, as I've previously said many times, are a great deal higher than that. We want to achieve this as much organically as possible. Of course, in business there are no guarantees, but you can be absolutely sure that we feel now that we've got rid of, or in some cases have had to stomach the losses of some of the legacy assets, we feel as a board that we have a much fairer run at the title, so to speak, and we believe that we could create value, and we're willing to be judged against that.
Here's a question that I've been grappling with for 30 years since I started in investment trusts. Apart from a share buyback, how else do you think you can reward shareholders, especially the long-term holders, with much higher averages to assist the share price recovery? That's been, for me, the curate's egg for investment trusts over the years. But yeah, I'd be interested to hear what your comments are. I don't think you're going to shock me.
No, I think it's no secret, and it should be no secret, that investing companies, especially in the junior market, can be very, very difficult. There are a number of instances where those companies have traded hugely in excess of net asset value. We haven't really had that problem. It would be a problem I'd like us to experience. But I do believe that the share price is going to respond much more favourably to a number of things that have been put in place, including the buyback. A more aggressive comm strategy, I think, is going to be very important, just in terms of getting the word out, making sure that new investors can see what we're doing. I appreciate that it's difficult for those investors who are sitting on big losses, but ultimately it's bringing in a lot of new investors that will, sure, they will do very well out of it, but that will also help get that price recovery in place. Obviously, you can't fight the tape, is a saying that I've always believed in, and it's very, very difficult. And by that, that's a stock market saying for anyone who's not familiar, that the market is the market, and the market will decide. But I believe that we have certainly a couple of very interesting investments in our portfolio that have the ability to propel our net asset value a lot higher. So I think we just have to give these things time and let them do their good work. But yeah, I think, Ian, it's not an easy answer to give to anyone, other than to say that we're going to work down hard, and that we believe wholeheartedly that we're going to be able to achieve a number of ways in which to reward shareholders. And for me, the best way to do that would be to absolutely knock it out of the park with 1 or 2 investments, hopefully more, but being realistic, and be able to say, right, we've generated a huge amount of capital. We're going to reinvest some of that money, and here's a large special dividends. I think that we'd all be very happy to see that, and I think everyone in this room would agree that that's a goal.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. We've had a question about news flow, and I think we're all very sensitive to this. That on the one hand, unfortunately, there are times when we can't say stuff, and we'd love to be able to say stuff, but we're restricted. And Ed touched on the relationship with the Nomad. We have to be really quite careful about what we say and when, for obvious reasons. And someone said, do we have a strategy in relation to for news flow going forward? Yes, absolutely, we do. And I think one of the challenges, and sorry, I'm answering this question, one of the challenges is the flow of information. I'm sure everybody's familiar with this. The flow of information is changing, and has changed very rapidly. I mean, as I say, I go back a long way in the investment trust business, and we used to start with journalists and RNSs and articles in the Financial Times or the Daily Mail, and that was the long and short of it. The world has changed very dramatically since then, and for us as a relatively small company, we want to punch above our weight, and we want to deliver that message in the way which gets us the biggest bang for our buck. Now, that may be using new technology, but equally, you have to be careful about this because quite a lot of the social media channels are probably working in a demographic which isn't necessarily typical for our investor base. So while we can get the message out, we really want people who have got investable capital on a discretionary basis who want to buy our shares getting the message. And actually doing that is quite a tricky task, and identifying that and measuring how successful we are for that. But absolutely, to answer the question for whoever raised that question, it's something which I think, if I'm right in thinking, well, I am right, it's discussed at every quarterly board meeting that we have, and at other meetings in between, is how can we get this message out. But as I say, I keep repeating, sometimes we don't have news flow because we don't have news flow, and we don't want to just send out flim-flam because that will just annoy our shareholder base and potential shareholder base. And sometimes, frankly, we are just completely restricted from being able to answer questions because of market abuse regulations. So, but absolutely, I hope Ed's explained to you that that's one of the key planks of our strategy for narrowing the NAV market value discount, is making sure we get the message out both to you guys who are existing shareholders, but also to attract new shareholders into the registry. And perhaps we've addressed that, but I don't know if you want to add. Someone asked, how will the board attract new investment in the next year or so? Is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, with this question, I'm not entirely sure whether they're talking about new investment, i.e. new capital into the business, or whether they're talking about new investments specifically. Obviously, I think we've spoken about, we're always looking at a huge amount of debt. You can imagine now that the market is also aware that we have capital, we are seeing an even larger inflow of investment opportunities now. A lot of these go straight in the bin, to be honest, because either they are far too large and we would be so passive, it would just make no sense. And we always have to ask ourselves the question, is this an investment that our investors would likely be able to see themselves? So our value has to be in investing in things that investors in general, obviously there will be outliers in that, but the idea is that particularly where it comes to retail investors, it has to be something that you retail investors would not have the access to. That's how we create some value here. In terms of attracting new capital, i.e. new investment capital, right now, as I've said, we want to try and achieve as much as possible through organic sales, divestments of assets at much higher prices than we purchased them, at which point we will get to a scale whereby it would make sense to take on new capital, i.e. raise capital. Right now, we're obviously doing the absolute opposite of that by buying our shares. So obviously, clearly there is no interest in us raising capital right now. We think that we can generate a healthy amount of cash from our existing portfolio.
Okay, thank you. Last one for you, which I think you probably answered in your presentation, but I don't know if you want to add anything. The question was, are you able to tell us the annual cost base of the company and how does that compare with previous periods?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, yes, you're absolutely right. The cost base for last year was 744,000. That was the year to March. Looking forwards, and obviously we are always projecting forwards, we're looking at between 750 and 800,000 as the cost base for the 12 months from today. That's a better way of looking at it. Comparing that backwards, as I say, 2023 was 744,000, 2022 928,000, 2021 836,000. So we have seen some reduction in there. I think it's worth sort of noting that when I talk about 750 to 800, I'm kind of talking about excluding exceptional investment costs. In some of those past years, we did have some fairly chunky additional costs. We went through a some work with, for example, Factum, where they were heading into a bankruptcy, and we spent quite a bit of money with US lawyers protecting our position and making sure we weren't written out to a zero, but we have something that was ultimately rolled into what is now Invenium. So that did work. You can't forecast what those are going to be. We don't have a situation like that at the present, which is good. But the other reason that we've seen a down in costs is that we simply have been able to cut some costs. So we've moved administrators, we've moved auditors, we've moved registrars to lower cost providers, and have been able to sort of control our cost base from that point of view as well.
Okay, thank you very much. And the last question which I've got is, and I just wanted to touch on something. Are we in a closed period? No, we're not. Now, and that's because we were able to make the announcement we did last night at 6 o'clock. I just wanted to touch on that because I'm sure that there are some people in our audience who are thinking that there was some sort of nefarious scheme where, I don't know, the board rushed out an announcement just before the AGM. I want to address that because I address it head on. The board had passed a resolution to do the share buyback some weeks ago. The technical part of actually getting every bit of the legal, the regulatory, and the mechanics with the broker and everything like that has taken longer than perhaps we budgeted for, and that's nobody's fault. It's just the way the world is, and compliance and anti-money laundering and all that kind of good stuff. And so we've been working night and day, not me personally, but that's a royal we. Some of the people around this table were working night and day so that we would be in a position to make the announcement before the AGM. And we had rather hoped it was going to be a week before the AGM. It wasn't, it was last night. But please take my assurance that that was not to do with some sort of nefarious scheme by the board. It was simply that we were balked on a number of directions by regulatory and in legal and compliance stuff, which just took a lot longer than we'd expected.
Thanks for addressing that, Ian. I really should have addressed that. You're absolutely right. I suppose to provide a little bit more detail on it, it's certainly not been humorous for us, but you know, we have 3 different brokers, and we had agreements from 2 of those brokers that they were able to do it, and at the last minute, for various reasons, including the fact that we have cannabis investments, that became quite tricky. But we got there in the end, and we got it there done in time. So, and that was, we really wanted to get that done. So.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to bring the meeting to a close and thank the people who've spoken and presented today. As Ed said, if you have a burning question that you feel we've not addressed, please get in touch, or we'll look forward to seeing you sometime in the winter once we've sorted out the investor presentation in London. Again, so thank you very much, and we appreciate your support. Have a good day.
That's great. Thank you to the board of Seed Innovation for updating attendees today. Could I please ask attendees not to close this session, as we'll now automatically redirect you for the opportunity to provide your feedback in order the board can better understand your views and expectations. This may take a few moments to complete, but I'm sure will be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the board of Seed Innovations, we'd like to thank you for attending today's annual general meeting. Good morning to you all.